Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey guys, we're back for another episode. And today I want to kind of revisit the last episode about discipline, and mostly one of the comments that I got, I thought was a good comment, and I should actually do a part 2 on discipline. I wanted to start though with doing a podcast is kind of an interesting thing to do. I do it because I want to help people succeed, because I want to be a positive part of the world. I want to be a positive part of powerlifting. I want to give back to a sport that gave me so much and is still part of my life and will always be part of my life. Not even the sport, but just lifting and fitness and health and strength and all of it in general. That being said, it's very difficult at times to get on here and record knowing that you have to communicate properly and you're communicating to so many different people. How do you know that your point is always going to get across, and how can you be a better communicator? And for me, this podcasting venture is just like anything else. It was just like strength training. I'm just going to jump in and start and hopefully improve and learn and get better as I go. And this is what I did. I just went, hey, let's start a podcast. I can only listen to myself so much, but I try to review every podcast I do, and I try to become better at it. I'm looking for ways to speak better. I'm looking for ways to communicate better. I'm looking for ways to get my point across better. And I also have, there's the podcast with the guest, which is trying to pull their personality out, pull information out of them. I shouldn't say pull. It's not pulling it out. It's a symbiotic thing I want to do during the podcast. I want to sit down and talk to them, but I want who they are to come out, and I want some of the knowledge that they have that they want to share to get out to people. So that being said, here's the comment. And this comment was from Billy Memaw, who I actually have a lot of respect for, because Billy has always been very outspoken. He has never hidden behind some kind of social media persona. He says what he thinks, and it's who he is. This is Billy. I'm saying this, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. And I have a huge ton of respect for that. That being said, again, we butt heads on a lot of different things, and he's given me a lot of shit over the years, which again, I never minded. That's his opinion. That's how he looks at it. So I always look at when he does comment or we get a chance to message back and forth, I always look forward to it. And I always listen to what he says, because he was also one of the guys that I looked up to when I started powerlifting. He was a high level 308 with, I think it was Tommy Fannin, John Grove. I mean, these guys were like strong as shit in my eyes. And I wanted to reach that level. I wanted to be competing at nationals and worlds like they were. So he put, I could not disagree more. Dave Palumbo says the entire reason he became one of the first 300-pound bodybuilders ever was because of 3 things. He never missed a workout. There's some typos in here. He never missed a meal, ever. He never slept less than 9 hours a day. It's a nonstop consistency of never missing any of those 3 things that builds strength athletes. Agree 100%. Chad Nichols said what made Ronnie the best ever was because of he was like a robot. He never missed a meal or workout. Branch Warren says the same thing. Chuck Vogelpohl says the same thing. Louis says the same thing. These are the guys I would follow. So I feel like to some degree, maybe I didn't communicate properly. Maybe Billy didn't understand properly. Either way, I went, hey, this is probably enough that maybe I should do a second episode on this. To put it simple, the more often you can train, the faster you can get stronger. If you're getting enough recovery, if you have the genetics to recover enough. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody should train as much as they can as long as they're making progress. Sticking to a program where you're not getting enough recovery and you're not making progress doesn't make sense to me when you're doing it just for the fact that, hey, these guys said consistency, so I got to be consistent. Well, what are you being consistent with? Are you getting your calories? Are you getting your 9 hours of sleep? Well, then don't try to train consistently if you're consistently and a lot if you're not focusing on your recovery enough. When you break strength training and bodybuilding down to the simplest level, you have to stimulate growth. You have to recover from that stimulation. Then you have to give your body time to grow. There's a lot of different factors in that recovery and in that growth phase. It has to do with nutrition. It has to do with sleep. It has to do with possibly GPP recovery sessions. It has to do with flexibility and mobility. It has to do with definitely sleep with other modalities such as contrast baths, saunas, hot tubs, ice baths, just a lot of different factors that can help. Even stretching can help speed that recovery. So yes, if you have the genetics to train 7 days a week, then train 7 days a week. If I could have got stronger training 7 days a week, I would have. I tried training 7 days a week. All I did is get weaker and more beat up and went down a rabbit hole of shit. So it didn't work for me. Let's talk about these people he's talking about here. So do we know the genetics of these people? Do we know how good they recover? Dave Palumbo said 9 hours of sleep. So I'm assuming that's not 9 hours in bed. That's 9 hours of sleep. He was probably eating a massive amount of healthy calories. That is going to allow you to train more often and get results. If you're sleeping 5 hours, he probably would not have been able to train as much as he trained if he only slept 5 hours. Or he probably would have been able to train that way, but he wouldn't have saw the results. I'm assuming, since all of these guys were top-notch guys, odds are they had good genetics. I've had the opportunity to talk to Chuck Vogelpohl multiple times. I think he's an awesome guy. I have huge respect for him. He's always treated me great. That's another guy I looked up to. I mean, if you want to see some of the most intense lifters in the world, I consider myself on that platform, but Chuck Vogelpohl is one of the most intense squatters to ever step on a platform, which I loved. That's awesome. I will not train like Chuck because I know I cannot recover like Chuck. Chuck has a great recovery. He's got a great mentality. He's got a strong mind. So he's able to make gains training that intense. Do you have any idea how many people I know that tried to keep up with Chuck that didn't make gains? In fact, I know guys that tried to train with Chuck, didn't get stronger, in fact, got weaker or got hurt. Once they backed off and stopped trying to match Chuck, they started getting stronger. So you can't follow somebody's program just because you like them or respect them. You need to find people that are dealing with the same stuff you're dealing with. There's so many different factors here. So the sleep factor, the family factor, the housing factor, the job factor. If you have 3 kids, you're probably not going to be able to train like somebody single. If you have a family, a stressful job, a mortgage, you're probably not going to be able to train like somebody who has dedicated his life to powerlifting. Similar to what I did. I took a union job. I started with my CDL driving, but in this state, even if you work in the warehouse, it's the same thing. You're still a Teamster, although I wasn't a union member. You're still a Teamster. You still get all the same benefits. So I worked my way into basically a forklift job. And I did that on purpose so that I had more energy for the gym. I had left the job and I came back to the job making the deal that here, I want to focus on powerlifting. I need these times to train with my team. I need, if I tell you, I'll always give you months in advance when I have a competition. You can't tell me no if it's for a competition. And over 20 years, they never told me no. They told me no on some vacations that were just to visit friends or to do something else. They never refused me a vacation on a competition. We got to the point where we had some struggles about overtime on days that I trained, and we got that worked out. So most of that time, I hated that job, hated it, but I stayed there because it worked with powerlifting. I didn't have kids. I wouldn't have a serious relationship. In fact, I probably didn't have any relationship for like 10 years. Like, I didn't go out and buy stuff because I needed money to travel. I needed money to do competitions. I didn't want that stress of having to worry about money. I made a couple mistakes here and there for that, but basically I revolved my whole life around powerlifting. So you can't train, you can't look at somebody like me if you're not willing to make those sacrifices. Not to mention, I have horrible sleep, which means I have horrible recovery. No matter how much I try, I'm going to be lucky to get 6 or 7 hours, and those 6 or 7 hours are going to be shitty. That's if I can put 12 hours in bed, which is hard to do. So even when I train the guys on my team, when I train my clients now, I don't train anybody the way I train because I don't know anybody who has the recovery as bad as mine or deals with the depression as much as I do and the suicidal stuff. Now I have consulted with people that deal with it, and I tell them, like, listen, you're only going to be able to train so much because you're limited on what your recovery is going to be, but you need to try to optimize everything as much as you can. So when you're talking about dedication, which is what this whole thing is about, my point of the other video was you much dedication are you willing to show? To me, if you can't recover enough, but you can't recover from 6 days a week of training, but you continue to train 6 days a week, you're not dedicated. That's not dedication. That's just dumb to me. Unless you're admitting like, hey, I don't care what I lift. I don't care about my progress. I just want to go to the gym every day and push myself as far as I can. Well, cool, because you're doing your goal. That's awesome. I have no issues with that. If you tell me you want to be better and you want to be the best and you're not making progress, then it just seems dumb to me. And that may be harsh and that may be rude, but that's the way I see it. If your goal is to get stronger and be a great competitor in powerlifting, then you do whatever it takes to be better in powerlifting. You drop your feelings, you drop, oh my God, I got to train every day. You let go of all that bullshit and you do what needs to be done, whether that's training or not training, whether that's getting to bed at 8 o'clock every night because you get up early for work, whether that's forcing down meals when you absolutely hate to eat. To me, doing what makes you the best is dedication. That's the dedication I'm talking about. How much you train, to me, is relevant to a whole lot of different factors. If you want to train 7 days a week and you're going 80%, maybe you're never pushing past 80%, you probably can train 6 or 7 days a week. If you're pushing maxes, like true maxes, you're not going to be able to recover from that. So you're going to have to train less often with heavy sets. Like I hear a lot of people, my volume's up, I train every day. And I go, well, wait a minute, you train every day, but what does that mean? Like, what are your training sessions like? And they don't train hard. Like if you don't train hard, you can train all the time. Like if you're training everything with heavy reps and you're not really stressing your central nervous system, but you're eating good and sleeping good, you betcha you can probably train a lot. So it really all depends, like people, and it depends on how you say it too. For me, if you ask me how many days a week I train, I'm gonna go 2. But in all reality, I try to train every day. Every day I try to do something to make myself stronger or better or healthier. So I train every day. Maybe that's riding 10 miles on my BMX bike. Maybe that's a GPP forearm session that I just did, which I'll post on Instagram. You know, maybe it's one of my 100 rep days where I set the timer for 25 minutes and I just pick exercises and do 100 reps and just keep switching. I do a lot of different stuff. There's some days where I go, man, I really want to train or I really want to go ride, but you know what? I'm beat up, man. I'm just sore. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. So then what I do is I go for a walk. Well, that's still training. The fact that I'm not training when I want to train is training to me. What are you doing to get stronger? Now, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the gym. Because if you're doing something in the gym and it's not getting you stronger, then I don't give 2 shits. And one of the interesting things is I know Billy was always gave me shit because in my prime, and I'm putting up some of the top numbers in history. I think I was talking to Paul Leonard, which is going to be a cool episode we're posting here soon. And he's supposed to look it up for me. I think I made number 1 in Powerlifting USA. And I think that put me as number 2 in the world. At the time, Andy Bolton was the only guy with a bigger total than me that year. So that put me number 2 in the US, or number 1 in the US, number 2 in the world for that ranking section or year, whatever it was. Yet everybody gave me shit because I only did 2 heavy training sessions a week. What I call heavy, intense sessions. And the ironic thing is for me, if I saw someone do that, I'm like, how'd that guy get that good? Like, so training that much, does that work? Does that help? Like I'm always fascinated. Like I figure if somebody got to the top, I don't make excuses for why they got there. I'm thinking, wait a minute, what are they doing that I'm missing? What can I learn from that person? That person didn't get to the top by accident. It's not just drugs. It's not just genetics. Like they're doing something. I've never met anyone that's a complete idiot about training that made it to the top. I know some guys that do programs that I go, geez, that makes no sense at all to me. But come to find out, they know how to read their bodies really well, and they know how to push themselves when they do train. So then it's like, okay, it makes sense. They're stimulating growth in the only way that they, or I shouldn't say the only way, they stimulate growth in a way that they respond to, in a way that they like, in a way that's good for their mentality. And then they recover from it, grow stronger, then they go back and do it again. So that's, to me, that's pretty smart. So I look at it as like, what can I learn from everybody? No matter how weird the training is, I want to know why it works and what can I take away from it. Even, it was amazing. There was a point, because I was like this. That's the funny part about all of this is I was like that. I grew up more. The more I do, the better I'm going to be, because I grew up blue collar. So I trained my ass off. And I used to go, oh man, that lazy son of a bitch. How'd they get so strong? Oh, they're just genetic freaks. I wish I had that genetics. Turned out I was wrong, man. I was way wrong. And once I started actually learning and I started competing, I started going, wait a minute. Like, everybody's saying they're lazy, but maybe they're listening to their body. Maybe we think they're lazy, but their body's going, hey, you need to rest, man. So they're listening to their body, which makes them smarter than all of us. And I started thinking about that, and I let that sink in. And I started talking to more people. And I can say, like, a lot of guys that I talk to, and I consult, I do consulting through Courage Barbell. I do video reviews of lifts, which is me reviewing them and sending them a tape of me reviewing it. And then I do consultations where we can talk about how to fix their technique more. We can talk about their training, what they need to do. And I do consults with guys all the time that are beat to shit. I talk to some guys that are ready to quit powerlifting, and I'm like the last chance, which is actually good, because by that point they're willing to try something. They're willing to actually listen. And the first thing I do is get them to take a little break and then back off. Give yourself more rest. And in that conversation, we talk about, what are you doing to recover? How many hours are you sleeping? How much are you eating? Are you doing flexibility work? Are you doing any recovery sessions? And so I want to optimize their recovery, but you can get so strong that you optimize your recovery and you still can't recover. So then the only other option is, I need to train less. And this is a scary, messed up thought for a lot of people. It was scary and messed up for me. I still struggle with it to this day. But inevitably, they all start texting me going, Chad, what is this voodoo bullshit you got me doing? How is this working? How am I doing less and getting stronger all the time? How am I always hitting PRs now? Simple. You're actually giving yourself enough time to recover and grow. You were never giving yourself that time. So it is a really simple concept. And what I found, even for me, with my team, I was always the one that recovered the worst. All my guys slept good, and we actually were very close. We kept a close eye on their sleep, on their appetite, like all the things of overtraining. And as soon as their sleep went to shit, I'm like, dude, that's it. You're off. You're deloaded. Come in and help throw plates. Come in and do some light stuff. You're not lifting hard or heavy until you start sleeping again, which usually within a week, then their sleep would start improving. After the first good night, I'm like, all right, 2 more nights, then we can start training again. And I had guys putting up some great numbers and always getting strong. In the gym I was at, like, my guys were making continuous crazy progress. But we kept an eye on that. Now, one of the other things I wanted to hit on, and this is an interesting thing here, where Billy says, those are the guys I'd follow. And that makes sense. Like, hey, you want to follow the best. You want to listen to the best. I listen to the best. And that's how I came up with all my idea. Well, I listened to the best. I took it in the information, and then I computed it, ran it around, percolated it through my head, and then came out with my own way. But I listened to what they said. So you're here, Billy's listening to these guys and what they said, but then again, what I want to know is, what were their training sessions like? If Dave Palumbo never missed a training session, well, how many training sessions did he program? Was he, if 9 hours of sleep and always eating, you can do a lot. Like, if you can get a good 9 hours of sleep every night and you're eating tons of calories, you can train quite a bit. because your body's prime, man. You're going to be recovered. You're going to be doing awesome, man. Your central nervous system, your muscles, your tendons, like you're going to be doing great. I wish everyone would do that. But then still, what was his training like? How hard was it? And with Chuck, I know Ronnie Coleman went heavy, but I have this sneaking suspicion in my mind because I have talked to Ronnie before, but we didn't really delve into his training. Like, I want to know, did they adjust their training on the fly? Did they listen to their bodies? I'm betting you they did, but I haven't actually got to talk to these people to know for sure. I know Chuck trained like crazy a lot and pushed himself really hard. Did he ever miss sessions? I'm betting at some point he probably missed a couple. Did he adjust sessions? I can't say for sure with Chuck. I would love to get Chuck on here and talk to him about that. I think that would be a great conversation. I do know for a fact that a lot of the West Side guys didn't always do what the program said, especially the top guys. The top guys didn't always do exactly what Louis said, and they all kind of listened to their bodies. Like, guys would go in and do different stuff. Guys would do part of the session. Guys would come in and feel like crap and leave. I mean, I know that from guys that trained there regularly. I also know guys, like, I don't like throwing people's names out unless I know that they're okay with me saying this. It also always wasn't Louis that came up with all the ideas that Westside got credit for. There was a lot of other really intelligent guys. One of the first guys that I heard say, as you get stronger, you're going to need more recovery, was George Halbert. George Halbert was a West Side bencher, an amazing bencher. I have heard he still benches crazy numbers to this day. I just don't think he competes anymore. So here's one of the guys that came up with the open back bench shirt. He came up with a lot of different exercises. He came up with different variations of conjugate and did a lot of different stuff that people are like, oh, that was Louis and Westside. Well, it was actually George. So George is one of the top benchers to ever come out of Westside. And even he says you're going to reach that point where you just can't keep up with recovery and you're going to have to do less. So now we got Chuck, who is do more, always never miss. And then you got George, who's one of the best bench pressers ever. He's telling you, listen, you're going to need more time off. So, and if I go, okay, hey, I have 2 heavy training sessions a week, and then I have a couple light ones, but I never miss any of those training sessions. That's the same thing, right? I'm never missing what's programmed for me. And what if I go in and go, man, today's not the day to go. I had it for a true max today, but I'm not feeling it, so I'm going to stop at like 85, 90%. I didn't miss. I was still in there. So, I mean, what are we really talking about with never missing a session? Or the other guys that I've talked to who, I mean, I've talked to the stuff I was talking about on that episode came from, these are the best lifters, strongest lifters in the world. Some of them are the best of all time that I learned this stuff from. So who do you want to choose to listen to? Because everybody has a little different take on it. I chose to listen to everybody, then come up with my own stuff. I'm 52. I put up some of the biggest numbers in history. I don't have hip problems. I don't have knee problems. I don't have shoulder problems. I mean, knock on wood, I'm in pretty good shape. I still go out and ride my bikes. I go run around with my great nieces. I still go hiking and biking and climbing and all kinds of stuff. Seems to me my program was pretty solid. Like, why wouldn't you want to follow it or listen to what I said? I mean, if that's your criteria of who's the best, I would say listen to me and take it into context and then go, who are you? Which, if you came to me for coaching, if you lived in Reno and you said, Chad, I want to train with you, I want to get as strong as I can, the first thing we're going to do is kind of talk about who you are. And then I'm going to set up a program that's a little in the neutral and we're going to adjust it as we go. Because if you can recover from it, then we're going to train 3 days a week. If you can recover from that, then we're going to train 4 days a week. And I mean, I'm just talking heavy sessions right now. I mean, I expect people to train like every day. You can do something every day. A rotator cuff session takes 20 or 30 minutes. A forearm session takes 20 or 30 minutes. You can do something every day. You can go for a ride, go for a walk, go for a hike. Like you could do something every day to help you with getting stronger. So with Billy's comment, I wanted to just try to explain this a little bit more. Because one of the things I stumbled with when I first started was I thought guys did these programs. Like I thought you did that program, you don't miss. And if you miss, you make it up. But when I got to the higher level and I started getting better and I started talking to better athletes, I found out that's not the case. Most of the top guys I know don't have any problems adjusting their program on a day-to-day basis. If you talk to guys like Jim Wendler, Matt Wenning, a lot of these guys are like, no, you need to adjust based on the person and the day. Here's the program we want to hit, but we might need to change this. If you go in and you feel a twinge in your adductor and something's not right, even if you back off that day, what you're going to lose in gains is very minimal, if anything, because we don't get strong that fast. If you put 30 pounds on a bench in a year, that's actually really good if you do it consistently. So what's 30 over 12 months? That's 3 pounds a month. That's a pound a week. You're not going to lose that much by missing that one session. If you tear an adductor or you tear a pec or you tear a tricep, you're going to lose a lot of time. So is it worth pushing to that limit? I know every injury I've ever had, I can look back now and go, yep, should have paid attention to that. Should have paid attention to that twinge, but no, you're blue collar. You got to do what the program says. How far back did it set me? And in some cases, when I tore my tricep with the 900 opener, we were hitting my opener, that 900-pound bench, I tore my tricep so bad, I've had trouble locking out weight ever since then. Because I just ripped so much muscle away. Was it worth it? No, wasn't worth it to me, not looking back. In competition, I'll take it. I'll take any injury in competition, because to me, that's where you go, no matter what. But we're talking about training. So what is discipline? And I think you probably need to define that on a personal level, but it would be interesting to look it up right now. Define. And I can't type. Discipline. The practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct obedience. That's great. A branch of knowledge, typically one studied in higher education. Trained to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. Well, I don't really like any of these definitions. Training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental facilities or moral character. To train or develop by instruction and exercise, especially in self-control. So it's a little bit all over the map to me. To me, discipline is doing what I need to do to achieve my goal. And I think, like Ali says, discipline is doing what you don't want to do, but you need to do. That's discipline to me. One of the hardest things I ever did in powerlifting was not training as much. That was insanely difficult for me, harder than anything I ever did. Not letting myself go to the gym 5 days a week and train as hard as I could. The bonus to that was it actually made me delve inside myself and figure out why I needed to do that, what kind of shit in my past and personality traits I had developed that didn't allow me to do that. But it was put in my face that either you want to be the best in the world or you just wanted to go to the gym to push yourself every day. But both of those don't go together. I wanted to see how good I could get. I wanted to be the best powerlifter I could possibly be. So that was my drive. And that to me went, hey, if you're so disciplined and you're so tough, why can't you do this? Going to the gym and training hard every day wasn't discipline. It wasn't hard. I loved doing it. I enjoyed it. Not allowing myself to do that was difficult. That was hard. That took discipline. And I can honestly say, most of the people when I'm talking to them, like if I'm doing a consult, I can go, okay, so you're stuck. You're not making any gains. You're starting to get more injuries. You're starting to feel worse. What have you tried? Well, I've tried doing more. I've tried picking it up. They've tried all these things to add more into what they're doing. Some of them have tried. I'm trying to eat more. I'm trying to sleep more. But I keep running into the same thing. I'm like, well, have you ever tried training less often? They go, no. Well, why not? Because I know it won't work. Okay, you know it won't work. How do you know it won't work? You've done it then. They're like, no, I've never done that. I've only tried to do more. Okay. Then you've tried doing more and more and more, and none of it has ever worked. What about trying less? Well, that won't work. And that's where I just kind of start shaking my head. The one thing that could work, you won't try because you've already preconceived that it won't work. And it honestly might not work if you're that convinced that it won't work. But odds are you're going to start feeling better and you're going to start doing a little better. And then you might wind up having some faith in me and then really listening to what I'm telling you. And I'm not even saying train less. I'm saying train less seriously intense, hard sessions. And then we'll fill in those other days with other stuff that you've been lacking anyway. Especially like some super heavyweight powerlifters are so horribly out of shape that they recover like crap. Well, if we take less days beating yourself up in the gym, that gives us more days to start working on getting in shape. We can go out and get you riding a bike. We can get you going on walks. We can get you hiking. We can get you doing sled work. We can get you doing sprint work, which is all going to get you in better shape, which is then going to allow you to recover a little better. And who knows, after a while, we might be able to bring you back in one more day of heavy training, as long as we can continue with all of that other stuff and fit it in. So I agree with Billy. If you have the right program and you're getting your 9 hours of sleep and you're getting all your calories and macros in, and you're doing your contrast baths or your stretching or your mobility, you're doing your GPP, your recovery, that's awesome, man. Don't ever, if you got the program set up right, don't ever miss. But if it's not set up right, you're going to have to make adjustments. And when I'm talking about setting it up right, I'm also talking about people who have, I mean, the people he listed were so dedicated, they had the rest of their lives pretty locked in as well. Or they were super, super good at handling stress. Like most people who powerlift, well, I don't know anybody that powerlifts that makes a living actually powerlifting. So they have regular lives and they have regular jobs. So if your son is sick and you're up all night with him, you didn't get your sleep. You need to adjust for that. If you have a presentation at work or you have some major thing, your boss is on your ass, your stress is up all day long. You're in sympathetic instead of parasympathetic. You're in fight or flight all day long. Your body's not going to recover like it could. You need to adjust for that. If you're fighting with your wife, you need to adjust for that. Everything affects training. You cannot go, this is the gym, this is the rest of my life. They're tied together and linked together, and you cannot separate that. You can, however, learn to control your emotions, learn to control your stress, which is going to help with leveling everything out to make your training more consistent. But then again, that's also something you need to spend time training. You need to train your mind. And this goes back to some Stoic principles, but you can do that. And again, that's the discipline. Have the discipline to not let that stress overcome you. Have the discipline. I used to do this when I was training, when I was at the highest levels. Things would happen and I would go, listen, I can't stress over this. It's going to affect my body in a negative way. I have enough trouble recovering. Whatever it is, it'll get worked out. I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm not going to stress about it. Namaste. Like, that's something you can train and do, and it's going to help your training. So in some instances, I agree with Billy. If you can do that, if you can recover from that. Now, the question for Billy, I would ask, did you do the best you possibly could do? Did you ever try doing a little bit less and see what happened? Did you ever give yourself more time to recover and see what happened? Like, I can say that I did. I've trained just about every possible way out there. I even trained less. I tried to go how far. I did this after my competing, but I've tried to go, how little can I train and still make gains? And I've trained to the point where, no, I'm undertrained. Like, this is too much time off. Like, I need to train more than this. Because I wanted to see, I can't know until I actually do it. And again, I'm a different case. Like, unless you have narcolepsy, unless you get almost no deep sleep, you're probably going to be able to train more than me. Even if you're getting 6 hours a night, your 6 hours is probably way better than my 6 hours. And the fact of the matter is, the more sleep you get, the better you're going to recover, the more you can train. It's a fact. The more you can eat healthy, good, clean food, the better your recovery is going to be. The less stress you have in your life, the better your recovery is going to be. Like, those are just facts. You can't argue with it. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope that added some more knowledge, some more stuff to think about, and kind of gives you guys the idea that there's not one perfect program for everybody. There's a lot of really good programs, but you need to consider who you are, what your genetics are, and how you're going to work around that. Don't ever use genetics for the end result. Your genetics don't say, hey, you can't be the best in the world. More or less what it says is, how can you get there? Yeah, I mean, there's some extreme cases. Like, if you weigh 105 pounds at 21 years old, you're probably never going to be one of the best super heavyweights in the world. But you can get crazy strong and you can make crazy gains if you look intelligently into strength training and you follow a program that works for you. And you're smart enough to take a program and don't just throw all the programs away. Go, I'm doing this program. It's not working for me. Why is it not working for me? What am I not doing correctly? Okay, guys and gals, I'm out. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.